At WHBR WVUP, we love shining a spotlight on local churches and ministries, like the one you're about to watch. If you enjoy their program, please let them know. Reach out on Facebook and send them a quick message. Follow their page. Hit like, comment, and share their videos with your friends. Your support makes a real difference to the churches we broadcast and to our station. Thank you for sharing and enjoy the program.
Up next is Jericho, and the walls will fall, but there are stones to stack before walls can shake. We got to remember where we've been and what God's calling us to. See, a strong memory is better than a strong army. And for you to truly appreciate God's blessings, we got to build up stone memorials in our lives. We're studying the book of Joshua. If you've missed any installment, I encourage you to go back because they do build upon each other. But let me give you a quick recap. The Israelites have been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years because of their disobedience and unbelief. But now it's a new day. Joshua is a new leader, and there's a new opportunity to go claim the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. There was just one problem. There's a raging river between them and that promise. But sometimes you have to stop telling God how big your problems are and start telling your problems how big your God is. And now we are in chapter 4, starting in verse 1. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, that's some 3 million people, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites to serve, get this, church, as a sign among you. It's interesting to see that the very next thing God asked them to do. It's not to fight. It's not to march. It's not to mobilize. He asked them to remember. And God is asking you the very same thing. He's asking you to start by remembering. Not by doing, not by planning, not by building. There was a lot for the Israelites to do. Jericho was in front of them. Other lands to conquer and possess. 31 different battles are coming their way, but God asked them to start by remembering because God knows how easy it is for us to forget. It's easy for us to forget. He knew the Israelites that the first hurdle they come against, the very first adversary they see, it would be easy for them to fold up and forget. Jericho in front of them, the raging river behind them. There was no place for them to go. There was not an option to run anymore, and they needed to tap into a power source. And our power source isn't our might. Our power source is our memory. God's calling them to remember. Lots to do, lots to possess, but first, pick up 12 stones and remember. See, one of the greatest enemies to a life of faith is forgetfulness. It's spiritual amnesia. See, spiritual amnesia is the very thing that prevents you from possessing God's promise. We have to remember before we forget. We have to fight against Forgetfulness. Up next is Jericho, and the walls will fall, but there are stones to stack before walls can shake. We got to remember. We got to remember where we've been and what God's calling us to. See, a strong memory is better than a strong army. And for you to truly appreciate God's blessings, we got to build up stone memorials in our lives. We have to be better at creating milestones and markers on the journey of life. How do we do it? Well, Joshua chapter 4, verse 6, it continues, in the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. A memorial. To remember not what you've done, but to remember what God has done. This stack of stones wasn't to remember anything the Israelites had done. It wasn't a memorial to Joshua or to Moses. This was a remembrance of what God has done. That when you put your toes into that water and the river backed up 16 miles away and you crossed on dry land, it was only possible through God. God did it, and we should never forget it. So how do we remember? We need to look back and be thankful. This morning, I want to encourage you to look back and be thankful. You know, we are going to look back at our lives. It's guaranteed. It's just human nature. We will look back. But what do you focus on when you look back? Are you focusing on the regrets and the shame and everything that went wrong and how somebody did you wrong and they said the wrong thing to you? Are you just focusing on the failures, on what could have been? Listen, we can either have stones of remembrance or we can have stones of regret. Create a memorial to look back and be thankful. The Israelites had a lot to be thankful for. They had a lot of stones to stack. As those 12 men representing the 12 tribes were stacking those stones, they could recall and remember. Do you remember the parting of the Red Sea? God did that. That's another rock to stack. Do you remember how we had manna every morning for 40 years? What incredible room service. This was amazing. Had quail in the evening. Do you remember how our clothing and our sandals never wore out for 40 years? We stacked that rock. Do you remember how we were guided by a cloud every day? Guided by a pillar of fire every night? It's another rock to stack. Do you remember when we were thirsty and there was no water, but God told Moses to tap the rock and water flowing for not just us, but for millions of people? Do you remember that time that God and Moses had an encounter one-on-one, and Moses left there shining, glowing of the glory of God? Do you remember that time that we were in battle, yet Moses was on top of the hill, and every time Moses raised his staff, we had victory and we won? There are stones to stack in your life. There are moments to remember, to look back, and to be thankful. They had a lot to remember, a lot to stack up, a lot to be thankful for. Church, what's in your stack? What's in your stack? What are those stones that you need to stack in your life and remember the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God? Susanna and I, 17 years of marriage. We have stones that we stack. One of the stones that we stack is this very building. See, we launched this church in 2017, 9.5 years ago, and we launched portable. So just like the Israelites, we were constantly on the move from one location to the next. And in 2019, we had to move out of a building because the city was shutting down the the community center, the senior citizen center. So we began looking and we found this property, this old shopping center, desolate shopping center. And in 2019, as a 2-year-old church, we purchased this 50,000 square foot property. And as we put in offer and as we went through due diligence and as we closed on this property, we were praying for this location. We were praying for this building. We were praying and circling this building. I circled this building so many times, I knew the cops were going to get called on me. And we prayed. And we spent the next year from 2019 to 2020 dreaming up and getting drawings for how to turn a shopping center into a church. One that focused on marketplace and ministry, where we could have a preschool, where we could one day have a coffee shop. And those are dreams in our heart, covered in prayer. And we received drawings March 2020, COVID. We had to put that dream on pause, but the prayers never stopped. Even when we were meeting for months and months online because we couldn't get anywhere else to meet, we were praying. We had 21 days of prayer at this location. We had services in July in the parking lot. Fried all of our equipment that day trying to do it. But we kept praying. 2021, we survived COVID. We tried to get lending. 11 banks turned us down. They just couldn't see the vision of what this place could be. But you did, and you kept praying, and we kept believing. 2022, we broke ground and began construction, and I want you to know there are stones stacked all over this building. Here, let me show you a picture of prayers written on the floors and on the studs and behind every wall. I want you to know there have been prayers prayed for you. There's a prayer that somebody prayed for people sitting on the back row. If you're sitting on the back row today, you're welcome here. And I want you to know you've been prayed for years and years before you ever showed up. We prayed that all who enter would be blessed, and they're coming and they're going. There are prayers here. There's stones that are stacked. 4 years of prayers on this property, soaked in this ground, before we ever had one service. 4 years of outreach and food distributions. We were being the church before we ever came to be the church. Stacking stones. And that's just one of many. I got a lot of stones. You probably think back in your life of all the stones where God has come through and has done only what God can do. So what's in your stack today? Verse 9, Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant has stood. Hang on, wait a minute. There was 12 men representing 12 tribes. They grabbed 12 stones, and they're going to set up a stack in camp in Gilgal. And what many people don't realize, this is a second stack of 12 stones. That this is Joshua on his own taking 12 stones and now stacking them up, not in Gilgal at camp, but in the middle of the riverbed while it's still dry. See, there are stones that you need to stack for where you're going, but there are also stones that you need to stack for where you've been. And Joshua, in this very personal moment, said, I need to take a moment to worship God on my own. I need a private moment of sacrifice. I need to stack some stones. Some stones you're going to stack publicly. Some stones need to be stacked privately. Heaven doesn't measure greatness by a public platform. It measures greatness by private obedience. And this was a private moment for Joshua, going off script, saying, I know we're stacking stones publicly, but I need to make this personal in my life. And he takes this moment and he stacks stones in the riverbed, but as soon as they all leave the water comes back. And it's at full strength, at flood stage. So the stones he just stacked would be covered in water. No one else would see what he's done. I believe your biggest accomplishments might not be seen by the world, but it might be something that your family becomes. It might be the private moments of obedience and fellowship and devotion that makes all the difference. Your legacy won't be because of the things you accomplish or the things that you acquire. Your greatest legacy will be found in your family and in your friends and those people who you've influenced with your life. I believe every week as a family, you have an opportunity to stack stones. Every week you have an opportunity to stack stones. Let church be one of the stones that you stack as a family. Come on, make church a memory. Make church a tradition. Make church fun for your family, for your children. Stack those stones every chance you get. By the way, one day you'll look back and be thankful. You'll look back and give God praise for what he's done in your children because of your faithful obedience to him. And this isn't just feel-good blessing. There's hard research that says there is a religious advantage. That children who grow up in church, there's an advantage. Their GPAs are higher no matter your socioeconomic status. That teens that have grown up in church get A's at almost twice the rate as non-religious teens. That kids that grew up in church earn bachelor's degrees at double the rate of non-religious peers. Not only that, that kids that grow up in church, they have a faith that is real, that creates a strong moral compass. That teens that grew up in church are dramatically less likely to be depressed, anxious, lonely, or feel that life is meaningless. They're the ones that care more deeply about equality and about the elderly and the poor. But church is boring. Your kid's kindergarten music recital is also boring. And you attend that. You go there. Let me clear up a misunderstanding. So many times we think church is here, and with kids, it's just entertainment. Let me clear that up for you. I want you to know what happens on that side of the building is advancing the kingdom of God more than what anything we can do in here. That is church, and it's making a difference. I'm telling you, what other organization? It doesn't require money. It doesn't require connection. It doesn't require credentials for you to walk in and receive the blessing of faith, to receive what God has for you. And there's nothing else in this country that can offer your children what a strong faith community can. It makes all the difference. I want you to be able to look back and be thankful for these years. Moms and dads, stack the stones. Let me take it one step further of why this is so personal to Joshua. We got to look back. We got to look back 40 years prior. The first opportunity the Israelites had to claim the promised land. Moses sent out 12 spies. 10 of them came back with a negative report. Only 2, Joshua and Caleb, came back with a positive report. The negative report spread. Negativity spreads. And it caused the whole nation to be fearful. They wanted to go back into slavery in Egypt, and they were just overwhelmed with this fear. But it was Joshua and Caleb that stood up and said, no, God is with us. We can move forward. We can claim this land. Let's go. God is with us. We can follow him and do this. And the town and the community got so upset. We see this in Numbers 14:10. But the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. 12 stones built up as an altar. The last time we heard anything about stones is this moment in Numbers 14, where Joshua was reminded of their greatest failure, reminded of a moment of deep pain where he followed the Lord and it cost him dearly, where his life was threatened. And I want you to know every single rock that the Israelites could stack up was a moment of hardship. These stones are moments of hardship. They needed the parting of the Red Sea because they were being chased. They needed the miracle of manna because they were hungry. They needed the miracle of the water coming from the rock because they were thirsty. Every one of their miracles was first birthed out of hardship. And that's true in your life as well. You won't have many stones that are birthed from ease. You're not going to stack a lot of stones. You remember that time I got the promotion? You remember that time we got that big bonus? You remember that time where the kids behaved on this trip? Those are not typically the stones you're going to stack. You're going to stack the stones that if God didn't come through, you wouldn't come through. It's the ones of hardship, of that diagnosis, that breakup, losing the job, being told no, caring for an aging parent. It's those moments that we look back and say, Lord, you were there. What are those stones for you? What are the moments that your kids are going to ask about? How are you going to live your life in such a way that your kids are going to come to you one day and say, explain all this to me? How did we get here? Knowing how you grew up, knowing what adversity that you had to come through, how did all this happen? Live a life that intrigues your kids to ask questions. Live your life in a way that one day they're going to ask, and it's going to be a moment for you to tell a story of the faithfulness and the goodness of God. Jumping to verse 20, and Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones that they had taken out of the Jordan. This is the second stack. And he said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. Why did he do it? He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, so that you might always fear the Lord your God. We do look back and are thankful, but we're also looking to the future, in the future. That was mentioned several times in Joshua chapter 4, that they will always know, future tense, that they may always fear the Lord, be in awe of the Lord, be reverent. And again, future tense. So look back and be thankful, but also look ahead and be hopeful. Look ahead and be hopeful. It wasn't just about the moment. God was already setting the stage for a future moment, for another moment, for those that wouldn't see this miracle, for those that are not here yet. All of us have 2 biological parents. That's 4 grandparents and 8 great-grandparents. But if you zoom out 10 generations, that means there was 1,024 ancestors that needed to be for you to be. If you zoom out even further to 20 generations, that requires 1,048,576 ancestors that had to be for you to be. That's why geneticists say that we're all at least 50th cousins. What's up, cuz? What's up, cuz? What's up, cuz? All of us were influenced by someone who was influenced by someone who was influenced by someone else. December 1970, an American agronomist named Norman Borlaug received the Nobel Peace Prize for his contribution to world food supply. In addition to the Nobel Peace Prize, he was also awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal. He's only one of 7 people to receive all 3 of those distinctions. And in the 1940s, while many were off fighting in World War II, Norman Borlaug was fighting a different battle. He was fighting world hunger. Dr. Borlaug took a research post at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in Mexico, and it was there that he did something groundbreaking that many of us don't even realize, but he cultivated a high-yield, disease-resistant variety of wheat. And conservatively, he is credited with saving 1 billion lives. 1 billion lives because of that cultivation of that type of wheat. But Norman Borlaug couldn't have done that without Henry A. Wallace. In 1943, Henry A. Wallace was the vice president of the United States of America. You all already knew that. And it was during that time he was worried about the increasing threat of a food shortage. So he was the one that appointed Dr. Borlaug to that research outpost in Mexico. He was the one that first saw potential in Norman Borlaug. He was the one that opened the door of opportunity for him. But Henry Wallace couldn't have done that without George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver used to take young Henry A. Wallace on botanical expeditions. It was George Washington Carver that instilled a love of plants into Wallace, a vision for humanity, and a curiosity for creation. But yet George Washington Carver couldn't have done that without Etta Mae Budd. George Washington Carver was the first black student to attend Iowa State University. And while he was there, he met the young Etta Mae Budd, who mentored him and taught him art. George Washington Carver would reflect on Etta this way: I am greatly indebted to her, for whatever measure of success I have has come from her. And out of that friendship, she advised George Washington Carver to take up agriculture because that was the best way for him to service his people. We often think of legacy as impacting millions of people, but perhaps legacy is impacting one person who impacts millions of people. Let me pray for you. Jesus, we're thankful for your word, thankful for stories like this to remind us of our story. That, Lord, as we're stepping into new areas of life, new levels of faith, that we would stop and remember your goodness. Lord, help us to be faithful to stack stones of remembrance of who you are and what you've done. Lord, of hardships that you've given a new memory to. And Lord, let those rocks cry out of thankfulness in our lives. And Lord, let us look ahead and be hopeful for generations to be blessed because of what you're doing in our life today. Lord, we're thankful for every person in this room that's made an impact in our lives. Lord, would you bless them? And Lord, may we do the same. Lord, help us to stack stones. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for watching today's broadcast of Echo Life Church. To get connected, learn about events, or plan your visit, you can find us at echolifechurch.com. If you call Echo Life home and would like to partner with us, alternate ways to give include a text prompt following the instructions on your screen. You can also find Echo Life Church on the Church Center app. Our mission is to lead people to be fully devoted followers of Jesus, and we'd love to walk that journey with you. Join us in person here in Pensacola, or tune in weekly right here on WHBR WVUP.
Thank you for watching the local ministries that we broadcast here on WHBR WVUP. If you are blessed by their programs, reach out and let them know. If you'd like to see your church on this channel, please let us know, and we'd be more than happy to reach out to your pastor. You can contact us at 850-473-8633 or email us at whbr@ctnonline.com.